Troy from Ace Appliance in Toledo, Ohio. Welcome back to another in-home diagnostic video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com. And today what we're looking at is an upright Whirlpool freezer. It's only a freezer, it's not a refrigerator combination. It's a standard, just strictly freezer section. Customer situation is that it's not holding temperature, and it hasn't been holding temperature for a while. They've been having weak ice production over the course of time of owning the unit, and essentially recently it has not been able to hold temperature regardless of what temperature setting they set the inside to. So what I've already done is I've established and put a tap onto the system so that I can go ahead and verify if the unit is in a suction, meaning that it has a leak, or if it is just low on pressure, which would tell me that it has essentially a bad compressor. So what we're going to do now is I've already got the tap on. I'm going to remove the cap from the tap. The unit is on and running as of right now. And what I'm going to use is my gauge set. I'm going to use the blue side of my gauge set, which is the low side. I have put my tap onto the process stub of the compressor. It's the line that comes off that does not go anywhere. It's there so you can actually use it to check the low side pressure in the system. I'm going to attach my gauges to it. Once I have my gauges to it, what you will be able to see on my gauge is that I am pulled into a vacuum. 0 is no pressure at all. Below there is being that it is in a vacuum, which is telling me that there's not enough refrigerant for it to be able to pull it all the way through, so it's creating a vacuum on this side to try and get refrigerant back through. So what we're going to do now is we're going to leave this hose on here. We're going to make sure our ports are shut, and we're going to attach our yellow hose from our gauges to my refrigerant. And what we're going to do is this unit takes 4.1 ounces of refrigerant, 134A. What we're going to do is put approximately 2 ounces in the unit, and I'm going to utilize a leak detector. It's an electronic gauge that basically sniffs where the leak is at so I can locate where it is. I'm going to check a couple things. I'm going to check down below here in this area, the compressor, the drain pan heater, make sure that I don't get any sense of leak anywhere. If I do not, then the only other place for it to be is inside the freezer in the evaporator. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my gauges completely hooked up with my scale, my refrigerant out, so that we can get some back in the system. So today, to find the leak in the freezer, what we're going to need, you're going to need a weight of some sort to weigh your gauges down, the line going to your refrigerant tank. You're going to need a scale, an electronic scale. You're going to need your refrigerant, your gauges, a leak detector, and some sort of screwdriver to remove whatever panels you may need to remove. Because there's no point in me having it on. It can be turned off. With it turned off, I'm just going to put a little bit of refrigerant in it, make sure my gauge shows that I do have some pressure. And if I have some pressure, I'm going to give it just a few minutes so it can pressurize the whole system, and then I'm going to use the detector to find where my leak is at. Okay, so what we have here is I have my electronic scale, my refrigerant, and my gauges. What I've done is I've taken and left my blue line attached to the suction line on the compressor. I've taken my yellow line and left one end connected to the gauges and ran the other one down to my refrigerant cylinder. I'm also using my drill. You just need to use a weight of some sort to weigh your hose down, so if you do move your gauges or anything, you're not moving the scale and causing it to give you a false reading. So at this point, everything is plugged in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the refrigerant on, and once I have the refrigerant on, what I'm going to do is there is oxygen or air in this line right here. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just line bleed from up here at my gauges to let the air out just for a few seconds. Do that, and I'm going to tighten it back down, and then I'm going to use my gauge, my scale, to tell me how much refrigerant I'm actually putting in the units. Okay, so now that I've got that done, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to zero out my scale. So I'm at 0. And once I'm at 0, I'm just putting, it calls for 4.1 ounces. I'm going to put just around 2, maybe 2.1 ounces in the unit. My scale actually will show me a 1/10 of an ounce, so it gives me a little bit of an advantage to be able to go and put it inside the unit. And it is going really slow on filling into the unit. So what you can do to get it to increase its speed, to get it to pressurize, is if you turn the unit on, it'll help you pull some refrigerant into the system. Now I'm at 2.2, which is about half the amount of pressure we'll be putting in there. I'm already warm on the lines and cold on the other, because it's already starting to remove heat from the unit. I'm there at that point in time. What I'm able to do now is my gauges are shut, everything's shut. I can reclose my refrigerant line and reclose my refrigerant tank. Make sure it is sealed and off. I can turn my scale off. I can leave or take my gauges all the way off the unit. I am going to do so. I'm going to remove both my blue line and my yellow line and put the back of my gauge set and set them aside. But now that I've got pressure going in the system, I'm going to unplug the unit again to let it set there. Okay, what I'm basically now, after I've got everything disconnected, I'm just looking that I do have pressure and it is equalizing in the system. Both sides, or the high side and the low side, are going to equalize in pressure. Since I got pressure and it's equalizing, what I'm going to do is just give it another minute or two. And with that, I'm going to then get my leak detector out. I'm going to start sniffing around and seeing if I can find where this leak is coming from. All right, with my leak detector on, I've got it on low. And it's just giving me a steady chirp. And what I'm going to do is just start sniffing around at places. Everywhere where I find that there's a joint that's been brazed together, okay. I'm just taking the cover off of the actual tubes that go up to the evaporator inside the unit so that I can see if there's a leak under this panel right here. I'm leaving the leak detector on just because I don't want to have to reset it again. With the cover removed, we have some insulation that goes right here to the refrigerant line going inside. There is our leak. So we found the leak. This right here is the part that goes to the evaporator. I need to double check and just find out. I'll need to go look up online to see if this tube coming through here is part of the evaporator, which most likely it is. And if it is, then I need to reconnect it back on there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the back cover back on everything. I'm going to reposition it back to where it goes as far as the unit goes. Go look up what the price and the cost is to replace what we need to replace on the unit. And what we will need to do once we come to replace the unit, fix the part of the unit that needs replaced, which is going to be the evaporator. We then have to reclaim and evacuate the system, get all the refrigerant back out. Then we have to put it together, bring it down into a vacuum, and hold it in a vacuum so it can help eliminate, burn off, remove all the excess moisture that may be in the system, and then recharge the unit back up again. Thank you for watching another quality video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com.